Hi, welcome back to day 3 of our challenge to start your business with clarity. Just getting my light on. There we go. Okay, hello. So if you're just joining us or if you're waiting, hi Britt. Sorry, I was a minute late here than scheduled. So this is the 7-day challenge to set up your business, get your business going right with strategy to succeed and actually move forward, not just set up a business that you then don't actually use, right? And you want to know that you actually got it right. So you're not wondering about things, hearing about things, thinking you're missing out, missing tax write-offs, missing out on opportunity, and all of that. What's happening? Printer has decided to print. Okay. So in day 1, we went over a simple strategic plan, how to decide what to actually do every day to continue moving forward. And I've actually been adding some stuff to day 1, so I'll refer you back to that once I've added more in there. Day 2, we went over choosing the type of business, right? LLC, corporation, nonprofit, and then the tax side, electing S-corp, how you're taxed, what you can elect, all of that. Like that training totally simplifies that. You never need to wonder about what people are talking about when they talk about different business types or which one to form. So if you haven't watched day 1 and day 2, definitely join us and log in. If you have my free business spreadsheet template, then when you log in, you should see both courses now. And if not, then just be sure that you signed up. I'll put this in our chat. Let's see, here we are. Do I give classes for accountants? Funny you should ask. So I do have a lot of you guys who are accountants. And actually I'm starting, I posted on, let's see, all. Okay, I think I got it in that time, sorry. The link is in the chat if you haven't joined us. Hi, Ricky. Hi, Nassim. Hi, DK. Latifa. Classes for accountants. Yes. So I'm starting a program for accountants and tax professionals. Or if you're an accountant, you want to be a tax professional. Basically, we're setting it up as a monthly program for accountants and tax pros, where we'll be covering topics based on what you guys vote on. And at the end, I'll add the link to this section. I don't have the link on me, and it's going to be added to my website. So when you go to my website, amandarussell.mba, you'll now see professionals, accounting and tax pros at the top, and I'm setting up a separate program specifically for you guys. A lot of pros do use my courses, but you just got to understand that they're geared towards business owners. So it's a bit different, right? Okay, so let's jump in. Today we're talking about forming your business and specifically what steps. So as we discussed yesterday in day 2, what type of business to choose. Sole proprietor, LLC, corporation, nonprofit, right? Not that complicated. You can master them all. There's no need to be confused. And that's what we did in that training. Today, we're talking about that legal type of business and actually forming it. So I'm going to share with you 2 posts. I'm going to share my screen and show you inside the training. Let's see. get off of us. Let's see. Here it is. Okay, so this is inside the training, and I have 2 posts here for you. The first one we're going to talk about is options for forming that legal type of business. So whether you're a sole proprietor or what most people are going to be, which is an LLC or corporation or a nonprofit, of course, we'll be going over step-by-step how to form them second. But first, I want to talk about your options for approaching this, right? Because there's really 3 options. You can do it yourself, you can hire a lawyer, or you can use software you may have seen online, like third-party software that will do it for you, like LegalZoom. These companies have sent me affiliate links because they want me to promote them. So I'll include them in here if you want to give me credit, if you really want to use them. There are many reasons that I list here why I don't recommend using those sites. It's the same thing as doing it yourself, only you're paying them money. They are not personally looking at your stuff. They're not giving you advice, even though they advertise that, they are not doing that. And you're literally putting in all the information that they then take and put into your state where you're forming the business. So, I don't recommend them. Save that money. If you have money to blow, then hiring a lawyer. You can see down here, I can't not recommend hiring a lawyer. I'm a professional. I have an MBA. I've worked with a lot of businesses. I understand the legal world. I can't say you shouldn't hire a lawyer. Obviously, if you, number one, find a good lawyer who actually knows small business, because a lot of times lawyers actually don't know small business. They know their area. Surprisingly, they will still help out a friend by setting up their operating agreement, which is ironic because you would think that they would know that they don't know the extra details, but it's probably down to what a lot of lawyers have told me, which is that they're using templates. That's it. And while you would certainly expect them to start out with a template, if you're paying someone thousands of dollars to set up some legal documents for you, you would expect them to be heavily customized. That's what you're paying for, right? But people in the legal profession have definitely stated to me that there's really not much customization in most situations. Now, most situations, it's hard to know, but if you're providing general services, if you're not doing anything complicated, then paying thousands of dollars for a lawyer, again, if you have the money and if you have a good lawyer on top of it, great, give them this project. But if not, I don't recommend waiting on your business, right? You want to get making money or at least moving forward with building the company and what you're going to do. So that brings us to, what I'm going to teach you is doing it yourself. And this can even be faster than using third-party sites like LegalZoom because they actually have to submit it differently. So yeah, that's what I recommend is what I'm going to show you next. So when we come over here to the next post in the free training that you should have access to, you'll see it says step-by-step forming a business. So that's what we're going to go through next is these actual steps to do the legal setup. Let me see. Do I have any questions? I might come back if your questions aren't directly related. I'm a sole proprietor, but I heard single LLC, single member is considered the same. So you need to, who I can add to not be a single member. I'm not sure what that sentence means, Arpine, but you can go back to day 2 in the challenge if you're not in Get Signed Up because I address all of those types of questions. So you'll understand sole proprietor, single member LLC, multi-member LLC, corporation, nonprofit, for good, forever, okay? We'll come back to your question. You can clarify it and feel free to put your questions in, guys. I'll come back to them at the end. Okay, so the steps to actually form your LLC, form a corporation, form a multi-owner business are all laid out here. And this first link that I include here for you is of all the state business sites. So you can see they're in alphabetical order, Alabama, Alaska. So this is a starting point for you, and I'm going to refer to this throughout the steps, and you get access to this in the course here. So the first step is to find information and make some decisions. That's our first step. So we have 5 parts to it. So the first part is deciding, what will your business address be? Business address can just be where you live. If you work from home, that's all it needs to be. Many states don't allow P.O. boxes. You can do something through USPS, but honestly, guys, I really don't recommend getting hung up on this stuff at the start. Like, I know a lot of people get really concerned, like what address they put. Like, fly through this and get focused on what you want to do. And that's why in day 1, I so emphasize making sure you're doing something you really want to do, because most of us have been conditioned to think we don't get to do what we really want to do. We have to do something else before we can get to what we want to do. That's a really common conditioning that we have. So if you find yourself getting distracted, like my point is, this stuff shouldn't throw you off course. Just pick something and move on. If you find yourself really getting caught up in it, you might want to go back to step 1, because what you want to do isn't pulling you forward, right? Like fast, because it can. And even if you have something that's not pulling you forward, it doesn't mean that you won't be a success. It just might be a harder road than it has to be. So that's why I emphasize that day 1 so much. Number 2, what are the total costs in your state for this type of business? So most states, it's fairly cheap to form the LLC, or corporations are a little bit more complicated, but LLCs are fairly straightforward, usually $100 to $200. But a few states are a lot more, such as California. They have a nearly $1,900 fee or something like that per year for an LLC. And so if you're getting the LLC set up and you're not really using it yet, that could be a lot of money that you're not planning on. So that's why your next step here is to research the costs for your state for forming your LLC or your type of business. So you could come into this links for business formation by state, find your state. You can click this little thing on the side and find your state. And then you can see we've got a few different things here. Under LLC formation, you can come into this main site and you'll be able to figure out what it costs. You can also see I have the phone number for every state, so you can call. States are typically very helpful. You just say, what's the cost to form an LLC in the state? Okay. Let's see. So any questions on these two? Hi, DK. I'll come back to that at the end, because that is what I covered yesterday. I'm not sure if you've seen day 2 yet, but I'll come back to that at the end. Okay, so the next step is a registered agent. Will you be your registered agent? Will a family member, or will you pay a service fee? As always, I don't recommend paying a service fee unless you've got money to blow. Feel legitimate because you're doing what you want to do, not because you have an LLC. So a registered agent, once you form this separate business, like we talked about yesterday, LLC, corporation, nonprofit, these things are totally separate business from you. Basically, a registered agent is who's registered for that separate entity to be legally accountable for them. In other words, if the business is sued, where will that sue paperwork be sent to? That's all it is. So basically, a registered agent just has to be available during regular business hours, 9 to 5, 8 to 5, to be sued. That's it. So you can use a residential address, you can use a family member's address, you can use your address. You just someone should generally be there during regular business hours, because you should be able to be sued. There are services that do this for $100 to $200 to $300 a year. I don't recommend doing that, since you can just easily, if you have any family member who's often home, use their address. The likelihood of you being sued, I mean, what's the likelihood of you being sued? Oftentimes people are sued because they have a lot of money. So I'll come back to your question, DK, about, DK asked, when should I form an LLC as a sole proprietor? So like we talked about in day 2, sole proprietor is not separate from the business owner. Now, you still need to go through these steps to register your business, but you don't have a separate business entity. And we talked about an entity yesterday, which is a person. It's like the business is like a person separate from you. And that's what our legal law under the states does. So that's what you're doing when you do LLC, corporation, nonprofit. That's what you're creating, a separate entity. Sole proprietor, not separate. Part of you. And go back to day 2 and look at the cheat sheet. If you really want that simplified, watch that video and look at the cheat sheet, save the cheat sheet, and you never need to be confused. Like, there's not that many. S-corp is only a tax distinction, which is something that people are very confused about. All that's covered yesterday. Regardless of if you're a sole proprietor or an LLC, you should be doing these steps, because you still need to register your business with the state. You can still do some of the things that we're going to talk about next. So number 4, you don't have to have a registered agent as sole proprietor. And your costs will be lower because you're not forming a legal business type. You're just registering your business, which is typically something you're supposed to do anyways. So number 4 is to research and choose the business name and any DBAs. So the business name, every state will have certain rules for the name. So if we come back over to our listing here by state, you can see the first link I have under each state is business name search. So if we open this for Alaska, what this allows us to do is to search a name. And you can see, like, every state is different, but they have entity indicators. So if you're forming an LLC or a corporation, you have to include certain letters in your name. If you're an LLC, you have to include LLC or limited liability company or L.L.C. Like, you get to choose that very nuanced presentation following their rules. And let's see, business name, contact us. So where do we search? Oh, maybe we search here, or selecting a name for your business. Conduct a thorough name search. Okay, so this one linked us to a site about it, and then the name search is actually linked. So, wow, okay, this one for the state of Alaska is a little behind. It seems like they are having, select one of the following links to search for a license. Business license, corporations, professional license. Okay, and then you download, so you download a CSV to see if your name is in the listing. That's not the way most states are, thank God. Hawaii business name search. So most states have an actual search where you can type in the name of a business. So you see search for business and buy documents. Do it online. And here's business name search. And they're all different, but you can read through begins with or contains, and then you could search anything, accounting, blah, blah, blah. Whatever name you want to name your business, accounting, LLC, it's got to include LLC, so you can see all these options that come up, right? And they've all got LLC at the end. Now, a DBA, or what's also called a trade name, is when you have your name with the corporation or the LLC or the 501c3 in it. That's the official name. But the name you're going to brand and market in the world is not going to include that. So think about any big brand that you know. Airbnb, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, they're branding Coca-Cola, not Coca-Cola Brothers Incorporated. So it's ironic because so many times people are forming a business because they want that formal name when that's not the thing that people really brand, right? Like people tend to brand. So in other words, Coca-Cola has Coca-Cola Brothers Incorporated for their corporation name. And then they file a DBA or a trade name. It has different names under different states for Coca-Cola. Okay, and Coca-Cola represents Coca-Cola Brothers Incorporated. Okay, does that make sense? Now, if you're a sole proprietor, you can just file a DBA or a trade name, right? So my name's Amanda Russell. I could file a trade name doing business as myself as Amanda's Bookkeeping Services. And that would be my trade name. So you can actually see here in our listing of this search I did with accounting, we've got all these LLCs, right? And then this one without an LLC, and that's a trade name. It's expired, but you can click in here and you would see what company name it represents. So you can see cross-reference accounting services. Well, that's not exactly correct, but people make a lot of mistakes. So that's probably how that but we can see the registration's name, that person's name, right? So that's just an example. So you can get into one of these tools and search to see if your name is available and then decide on your DBA name as well. Let me see if we have any questions on that. Cool. Okay, I'll come back to those questions. You can keep popping them in and I'll go through them once we're done. We're almost done here. So once you figure out, your business name and then any DBA names, include the DBA costs in your total costs when you're deciding, what this is going to cost you. And then the fifth step is operational plans, okay? Setting up an operating agreement or hiring a lawyer, like this is that step. Now, if you're a sole proprietor, you got nothing to do here. You're just being yourself, working for money. And if that's what you're doing, no need to form something else. And you can be a sole proprietor even if you're hiring employees, even if you're moving forward. Now, a big reason why the LLC, as I covered yesterday, was actually put in place is because of limited liability. If you want to protect your assets from being sued, and I'm just giving the short version because there's a lot more that goes into that, then that was the traditional reason for forming a separate business. But keep in mind that most people didn't do the things they need to do to even have the business exist anyways. So that's like especially common with the corporation because a corporation is so complicated. And when it comes to these operational plans, if you are forming a corporation, I do not recommend doing that without a lawyer because it's not an area I know enough about. And this is the whole reason the LLC came about, is because the corporation was so complicated and small businesses were forming it all the time and not following all the rules with defining their stock rights and determining the types of stock and issuing stock certificates and taking people's money as investments into the corporation and filling a board of directors and then operating shareholders, board of directors, and operational staff, and following all of the extensive rules that are required. So that's where the LLC came from, because it's much simpler and still gives that limited liability company. But keep in mind that a big reason, why you would want limited liability, yes, people can attach to your future earnings if you're sued, but getting business insurance can be more realistic. If you have money and you've got a lot of assets, then yeah, go ahead, form the LLC for sure. Partly just because people people in your life may know that you have a lot of money, and that's typically where those issues more often arise, right? If you're in construction or something like that, like you ought to have insurance. So we'll come back to insurance on the last step. So setting up these operational plans. If you're an LLC, you want to decide, are you the member and the manager, or are you going to let someone else manage the business? Member managed is if you are doing it, a member, an owner, versus if you're going to give that power to someone you hire to manage the business, then that's manager managed. In an LLC, you also want to be sure to set up an operating agreement. Even if you're just a single member LLC, you want to do this because it's part of those steps to actually give you limited liability. Like, you have to follow all the rules. It doesn't matter if it's just you. If you act like your LLC is just you, then it won't do any of those things if you want it to do that. If you just want the LLC to have 3 letters at the end of the name of the business, then okay, don't worry about it, right? But you want to be sure that to understand that there's more than just setting it up and then saying, okay, I have that LLC. No, you got to treat the business like an actual business that's separate from you. So that includes setting up an operating agreement template. You can search online. I have another course that includes a template and walks you through a template. It's a very affordable course. It's on my site under courses. But you really don't need that. You can search operating agreement template online, and you're going to see all sorts of options. And all of those sites typically have a trial. You can set this up in 15 to 20 minutes. Just be sure to do it and get it out of the way and save it, and you're done. Move on. Now, of course, hiring a lawyer, this is where that option comes in that I discussed at the start. If you're in a multi-owner business, guys, this is something that can save you so much time, money, and relationships. Multi-owner businesses, and we talked about this yesterday as well for the strategy for forming businesses. If you've decided after watching that and after doing those exercises, if you've decided to move forward, becoming partners and owners of a business with someone else, keep in mind you're marrying them in this business setting. Now, you need to be sure that you all understand the tax implications of the movements of money. You need to be sure you understand how payments are going to work. You need to be sure you've defined the roles, each other's commitments, time, check-ins, financial reporting tasks, who's responsible, when are they going to be done, when are you going to review them, are you going to do it together, how's it going to be done, how will conflict be resolved, explicitly address at minimum these things before moving forward. I recommend putting all those things in your operating agreement, which becomes so much more important as a multi-owner business. The other thing you want to put in there as a multi-owner business is that you can take tax write-offs if you want to still be able to write off things like a home office and your vehicle deduction. Then you want to be sure to explicitly include in your operating agreement, I didn't include this bullet, but I'll add it in, language that says you can still write off self-employed write-offs. And the corporation, lastly, I already covered that, and I recommend hiring a lawyer for this, not doing it yourself. Okay, so step 2 is now that you have all of these decisions made and that information ready, step 2 is to file those state forms to form the entity. And most states have virtual options. I highly recommend doing it virtual. It's way faster. Every state is different. So you're typically going to be registering and forming your business at the same time. So even if you're a sole proprietor, like there'll be a portal that's prompting you to get registered, and then you'll select if you're sole proprietor, LLC, corporation, that sort of thing. Now, all states do have paper forms from when paper forms used to be the way to go. So if we come over to Hawaii's website for a minute, I'll just kind of show you, like, you've got to be willing to click around a little bit. We can see that we're at Hawaii Business Exchange, right? So we know we're in the right place. If we go to welcome or start, that's a good spot. And we can see like they're prompting us to log in to an e-site. So if we go to welcome, here we go. Start, register a new business, reserve a business name, register a new trademark. So this is exactly, we'd click get started and create an account like they're prompting us to do here. And that's how we would get started to file our LLC paperwork. They're gonna walk us through it in here. So you gotta just find the equivalent on your state, okay? And keep in mind, okay, you only form your business, the LLC, in one state. You'll then register in any states that you are required to register in, which is often because you're working there. So if you're working in a state, you should look into their rules to see if you need to register. You know, if you're doing a $100 job in one state, would I spend the time to look? No, you got to use common sense, right? But that's the rule. Okay. Types of forms. So if you do look to the paper forms, which of course is the option in our Hawaii site, then you can actually find what the form is. So sole proprietor would have no form, LLC would have articles of organization, corporation, articles of corporation, or corporate charter, or other similar terms. And then step 3 is you'll receive confirmation from the state and a state ID number. And at that point, that's it. You've set up your business. Let me stop sharing here. So those are the steps. Like, it's not that complicated, right? You can do those 3 steps. That outline is really helpful. Like, you might want to print that out if you are forming your LLC or other type of business, like to keep you focused and from getting overwhelmed. Of course, the other thing I highly recommend considering is business insurance. I'll be adding that in, and a link to a company I've been talking about referring. Their focus is on small business, and that they would have like paid out for things like COVID and will in the future, and that they're more, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but insurance companies are the most profitable companies in the US, which is wrong, right? Insurance companies shouldn't be profitable, in my opinion. That's an example of democracy weaseling its way into places it doesn't belong. Hopefully, okay, I'm gonna come back here and look at names. Sorry, I couldn't look in here while I was having the other thing up. So let's see. Would that program help learn and run tax prepare business? So Ricardo, the program I'm starting, so these 7 days that we're going through here, I am doing a course after this at 7 weeks where I'll be helping people actually implement these steps and to get help. So if that's the type of thing, a lot of it too is going to be focused on your next steps. Like, yes, you're setting up the technical sides, but that whole day 1, as far as actually making a plan and moving forward, and we'll be talking about the internet coming up next and how to incorporate that into your plan and what you're actually doing every day for sales and for using the internet as well. So if that's the type of help you're looking for to get started, then I would highly recommend my Form Your Business, Start Your Business course, which is starting after this. It's starting July 20th, and you can see that on my website. And I'll be sending out an email about it. So that's for anyone's type of business. Like I said at the start, I am going to be offering a monthly program for but I'm not sure when that's going to start. That's going to be more focused on content for accountants and tax pros that you're doing with your clients, right? Like accounting and taxes kind of at a deeper level for your clients. No need to apologize. Thanks for the question, Ricardo. R. Pine, I am a sole proprietor, but Herd LLC single member is also considered the same. Okay, that's the one I wasn't sure what you meant by who I can add to not be single member. Not the same, covered that yesterday and in this video since I saw that question. I guess I went back too far. You're adding in, Arpine. I am an online seller, and they said they will show my address on my seller profile if I'm a sole proprietor. Or a single member LLC. I don't want my personal address shown publicly. Well, put in a different address then. Don't register. First of all, they would put whatever you have registered for your single member LLC. So whatever business you register, why don't you, unless you have a lot of money and you have a massive home, I wouldn't really, why would you be worried that someone's going to find it and come to your house? I know people worry about these things, but I just haven't found it to be a big. The reason people have access to your personal information is what makes consumer protection in our markets so stable, because people are held responsible. We can find who's responsible for what's happening, right? That's how people are held accountable. So that's why information has to be public. Otherwise, think about the things people could do, right? And no one would know who they are. Just run it through business. Granted, there's a little bit of that anyways. So, that's why you're always going to be able to see who's the owner of a company, or at least you should be. So again, if you're concerned about it, then set up a UPS. The easiest thing to do would be go to a FedEx or UPS. They have addresses that are not PO boxes, that are actual addresses, and set that up as your business address. File it on your Schedule C tax return, set it up, register with your state, update your state registration if you've never done it as a sole proprietor, and put in that address. That's how you can resolve that. But your individual name is going to, the owners of the business are always going to be found through the registration site. If you file you don't have to tell them that you're a single member LLC. You can get an EIN, which is the next step, kind of getting an EIN. You don't have to have an EIN. Some banks require it. You only need an EIN is an employer identification number. The point of it was if you have employees. So if you don't have employees, you really don't need an EIN. But a lot of banks require it. I think that they get confused, but the IRS has accommodated it. EINs aren't really a big deal. So when you fill out the EIN, there's always going to be someone's name. So yeah, hopefully that helps using an address. Anyways, that's the way you cannot have your address shown. I'm a sole proprietor. When's the right time, DK? You answered my question. Great. When I can afford the fees. Exactly. Don't form. Exactly. You don't need a business to an LLC, a corporation, to make money, right? You really don't, I promise. It's just like having a pretty website. Does design help? Yes. I think, but people will always buy something you need. And you don't want to have a pretty design where some people are not really interested, but buying because it looks nice, because that's only going to screw you up and make it harder to know if you actually have a solution to people's problems. So I don't recommend focusing on anything other than sales. When you're getting started, and that's what we'll really be focusing on in the 7-week course I'm doing that starts after this, where I'm helping you with all these steps 100%. But the focus is on moving forward, right? Because that's what you want to do, is move forward and make money. And so since we're only one person, we can only do so many things at once. Certainly you can set up the LLC pretty quick following these steps, and then get focused on, or at the same time, be focused on your strategy and what you're doing every day to move that forward to having the sales to afford to do whatever, structure you're looking to build. But exactly, when you afford the fees, you certainly wouldn't want to be forming a business where you're like, oh my God, the fees are so much, I'm stressed out about it. Caesar, do I do personal coaching? I do have coaching packages. Some are reopening. You'll see a link on my site. Meetings. And under there, there's a coaching package. Right now, there's just some single, you can book single meetings based on availability. I'm not sure if there's anything available right now, but I have time opening up later this month and next month, and then there'll be another option when you go to that link with coaching packages. Naseem, I am a herbalist. Do I need to form an LLC first or get my resale tax ID first? You're welcome, Caesar. Thank you. What do you think about point of sale software? What's the difference between EIN and tax ID? Resale form. So, I mean, well, I don't think that those two things are related. I mean, I think if you haven't watched day 2 of the challenge, definitely check it out for anyone who joined late. If you haven't been on the 7-day challenge to start your business, you can register and you'll see the prior date. Today's was very technical. The prior 2 days were really answering a lot of questions and a lot of those types of things, questions, and really helpful. Some of this basic, like Naeem, that's why I'm bringing it up, because so this will kind of be a recap. So you got to get clear, like what the next step is, right? So the first thing is, are you going to move forward as a sole proprietor or an LLC? So you got to make that call. Are you going to be a sole proprietor, keep the business not separate from you, or do you have to have an LLC? The distinction here, noticing many people just move forward because they're going to make money. They want to make money today, so they just like move forward and they'll figure out the LLC and stuff along the way, which is what I generally recommend because people can get pretty distracted. But I went over all the steps to do it today. So if it's something where you're like trying to move forward right now, like you could register the LLC following this video today and then get your resale tax ID. So a resale tax ID sounds like it's something very specific to your state. So it's not going to matter. Like you could register as yourself, or you could register as a single member LLC. There isn't really a difference, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. EIN is an employer identification number. So that's when you have employees, and it's through the federal government. So you just search, I actually have a video about this on my website. If you search EIN on Facebook, YouTube, sorry. And if you search, if you just search online, get an EIN, irs.gov. Be sure to go to the irs.gov where it's free, I believe. Other places will charge you. Third-party sites, like I talked about today, don't use those. And it takes 10 minutes. You just answer the questions. So you're setting it up under your name. Like to answer your question, I would recommend doing the LLC first, because then you're going to put that business name on your other registrations. But if it's going to take you a long time to form an LLC, if you find yourself getting distracted, then just move forward and get it registered. You can always update that stuff. Great question. Let's see. Ricky, I was seeing your question. I didn't think I answered it. I am, as you can see, I have my own bookkeeping and accounting business at home. I'm a sole proprietor in my business. Should I also take on a successor in my business? What do you mean successor? The reason I asked, should I take on a successor in my business, is that when I die, the successor can keep the business going. Is this a possibility? Yeah, definitely. Like you could give the business to someone, or you could have someone ready to take it on. Certainly. You know, it's hard for small businesses to sell, but accounting and tax businesses actually do very well selling. because they're such consistent income, even if they're very small or whatever size they are, it's very, they're very long-term relationships. And so you can also like sell the business where someone would start to take over when you want to stop working and at least learn from you. So like if you have an employee come on that starts to learn from you, that's what I'd recommend, and then they can take over naturally. But yeah, you can do all sorts of stuff legally, and that's the type of stuff you'd want to talk to a lawyer about who's doing like a will type of stuff. That's where you could elaborate on that. But definitely like you could, and if you do something bigger, like if you want to have a bigger mission where you bring in like a lot of parties, then corporations or nonprofits can totally run on their own, right? Like they don't even need you. You're an employee. You're not even an owner. You're not even the board of directors. If you do it right, the way I teach, the thing runs on its own. So you're welcome, Naseem. Thank you for the question. Well, thanks, guys. That's all for day 3. Let's see what tomorrow is, because I don't remember. So tomorrow is step 4, day 4. It's taking the financial steps to set up the business. So this is where we'll talk about the money, bank accounts, EIN, paying yourself, and those systems. I know someone asked, I just remember someone asked about point of sale. We're kind of going to talk about that stuff tomorrow, like getting those preliminary systems for the finances set up. Day 5, we're talking about sales secrets that apply for any industry and every type of business. Really stuff that will make your life easier, right? Because you'll understand the basic components of sales from the big picture to the nitty gritty so that you can integrate selling into everything you do in your business, even if you're a nonprofit, right? Even if you're anything we do, we have to really learn these skills. I had to learn these skills. We'll talk about that on day 5. Day 6 is applying the tools of internet marketing and online business to your situation for an epic strategy. So no one can not be using the internet right now, right? Like everyone, every business needs to be using the internet to grow their business, unless you want to be irrelevant or you aren't serious about growing, right? You just have like one client and you're okay with that. And that's fine if that's your, situation. But in this day, I'll give you the big picture education that you really need to create a simple plan to integrate the online world for your business. And I think it's been really hard to learn that type of stuff because it took me a long time learning from many different people who really specialized in that industry. And sometimes they don't do a great job of like simplifying things. So obviously that's what I do with accounting and taxes, and I'll be applying it to the internet world on day 6. And then day 7, we're talking about implementing the plan and how you would have tweaked it from day 1 to all the technical things we've covered on 2, 3, and 4, and then day 5 and 6, and then implementing a plan going forward for success. Okay, so that's all. Thanks for asking your questions, Ricky. Thanks everyone for participating and showing up. Tomorrow I'm shooting for the same time, 10 a.m. Again, if you haven't signed up, I just put the link in. If you want to access the trainings from yesterday, there's a really great cheat sheet on choosing the type of business. Like I want you to never wonder about business types again. Like this should be common knowledge. That's why I made these trainings free, even though they're part of a course I'm doing for 7 weeks starting on July 20th. But I wanted this part to be free because I think people need to know this. It's just if you want my help and you want to be a part of a group to implement it. So, okay, guys, that's all for today. I hope to see you tomorrow, 10 a.m., day 4, where we're talking about things like setting up a point of sale. How do you take money? How do you do all the money stuff, setting up a bank account, finances? So all you do today is set up your LLC. And if you've got the information you need to go, you can go set up the LLC following the steps I gave you for free in this course today and be done. Hopefully your state gives you instant confirmation. I mean, you can do it, I promise. And ask any questions tomorrow if you run into questions. Of course, if you want more help, you can join us live. Okay, guys, I'll hopefully see you tomorrow or see you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new here as well. Okay, have a good day.